On this episode of the Dance Business Daily, we're going to talk to a studio owner who's managing a 74-year-old studio and the challenges that come along with that. Let's get into it. This is Dance Business Daily, a daily podcast where you can always find real talk with real studio owners, where we'll share best practices, success stories, and actionable insights so we can all get a little bit better together. I'm Bryce Conlon, and I'll be your guide. Welcome to the show, and let's get into it. Well, hey, welcome back to the Dance Business Daily. I'm Bryce Conlon, and today I'm really excited because I'm hanging out with Nikki Pittman of Expressions Dance Studio down in Plymouth, Indiana. And this is a really interesting studio. I want to talk all about it, but how did you get into the studio world?
So I was born into this business. It's definitely in my blood, but I was born into it. My grandmother ran the studio and we had it in our basement in our house, 365 days a year, all day, every day. And I just gravitated that way. And it's just always going to be here and just something that we love. So here we are.
So for you, because a lot of people say that they were born into, like I was born into dance, I was born into dance shoes or, ballet shoes or whatever, but you really, truly were. Like it was just kind of a part of life. What was that like as a kid? Like, were you a dancer yourself as a kid?
Oh yeah, I started when I was 3, and of course that's about the age bracket then. And we would have kids coming in our house down the stairs to the basement. We hold classes all evening, and eat dinner and then go to bed. And it was just a everyday kind of thing. And my grandpa would be sitting at the table watching TV as kids were coming in and out. So I mean, it was really like when people talk about a dance family, it really has started that way. And that's how we run our studio now. That's something that even over the years, we've never changed. We have a dance family, and it's the kids feel like it's a second home. And that's really what it came from, because it was our home.
It was an actual home.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's as soon as you said it, as soon as you kind of described and painted that picture of, your grandfather, just like I picture him like sitting in the chair with the newspaper, right? And, maybe mom's in the kitchen, like doing some dishes, and the kids are downstairs with grandma. Like I don't know if that's accurate, but that's the picture that is kind of built up in my mind. And it really, truly is a family, but that's a word that gets thrown around so frequently. And frankly, it makes me a little irate, if I'm being honest, because most, by the way, it's not just studio businesses that talk about this, like business in the broader sense talks about we're a family, and then they behave in ways where you're like, God, I'm glad my family doesn't behave that way. Nope. What is that makes a functional family? Like, a good family environment that you're bringing into the studio and wanting to replicate?
I think that one of the things that we bring to the table is our staff is all made up of volunteers for the most part. And we all have something that we bring to the table. I have one mom that carpools kids to and from. I have another mom that makes sure that everybody's got food when they come in, or makes sure that everybody's got all the things that they need. I have another mom that takes care of making sure that they have their dance attire. And so we're all constantly in communication, because you have to have open communication. So with our parents, and I think engaging them in everything that we do, because knowledge is power. So parents sometimes will panic about things that they don't know about. But if they know what they need to know, then it's icing on the cake, and it's a seamless system.
I just had a very similar conversation with a guest a few days ago, Josh Weil, and he said the same thing. It's just like parents oftentimes become overbearing when they're in the dark, when they don't know what to expect. They try to control. And so creating that seamless, open, honest communication can go a long way to just creating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We keep them engaged in, our social media platform. That's the biggest platform that you can advertise and share information on. So it's constant for us. Statistically, our numbers are ginormously growing, even in the middle of a pandemic, because of keeping people engaged in conversation, in topic, in, what is it that you need from us?
Man, so I want to take a step back because you mentioned, and you kind of like bounced off it and moved on. And my guess is it's because this is everyday normal life for you. But for me, I heard you say that your staff is all volunteers. I have never heard of that before. How does that, like, how did you get to that place, first of all? And then how does that work? How do you make it work?
So it is you want to work with your accountant really well to make sure that all of your numbers are in place and that you're doing things the right way. So it's taken me a lot of years to find the balance of how to do it the best way possible and what my trade-off is and what's beneficial for me to do and not do. We have our policy, my studio policy is there is no dancer left in the dark. So if a student walks in here, we find a place for them no matter what that means. We have a good sponsorship program with area businesses. We have parents that are willing to volunteer to help cover the tuition for those kids that can't. So it really, wow. When I say it's a dance family, it's because we create that expectation of caring and we have an art that we just don't want to die and kids have a need for it. So we just make it possible in any way, shape, or form. So we work together a lot.
So this is amazing to me because I just had this conversation about the importance of creating maybe a vision or something that is bigger than you or any one individual, right? Because it's very easy, if we're being honest, it's very easy to say, we're going to start a studio and our goal is to make money. And that's valid. It's not like shameful or bad or anything to be.
No, you definitely have to make money. I did learn that. You have to make money, and you have to be valued at what you're worth, and you have to put that out there. And there's no shame in that. But you also have to give the people the side of you that it's not about money.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but to be able to attract followers on your mission, on your journey, because it is bigger than, it's about keeping an art form alive. To hear that you have sponsors, parents who will say, listen, so I'm going to pay for someone to cover someone who does not have. That's amazing. So I gotta know, because I'm sure that there are I know that there are other studio owners that I've talked to who are in that position where kids walk through the front door and frankly, they can't afford tuition. And there's always that, kind of tension between, I want you to be here. I want to make a space for you. And yet my landlord also requires that I pay my bills in dollars, right? Not good feelings or, thoughts and prayers, right? And so there is kind of that balance. How did you, what was the first time that happened when a parent decided to cover somebody else's tuition? How did that happen?
It's always been a part of I remember when I was a small kid and I knew I wanted to be a rockette so bad. I'm only 5'2.5". That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So when I realized that, and he said, well, what do you want to do? If you can't do that, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to have a dance studio that is free. Wow. And of course he laughed and was like, let me know how that turns out for you. And it's clearly not free. It's very expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive sports I've ever entertained. However, when I realized that when you get like-minded people together for the generalized purpose of good, they will do things. They will do what they want to do. And when you find the right people with the mix of their hearts in the right place, but they also are willing to put in the work, that's really all it boils down to. So our scholarship program is made up of spreadsheets and all sorts of, behind the scenes things. But essentially, as my contribution to our scholarship program, that's where their tuition comes into play. So I'm willing to donate my time if you are willing to donate your time. Cool. So I have small kids that come in here and, they might clean off my countertops for an hour, but they're willing to do that because they want to dance. So I trade my hour for your hour because that saves me on my cleaning bill. So everything has a systematic. We keep track of who's willing to volunteer, how many hours a month, and so we kind of keep track of it that way. But then there's no need for me to turn anyone away.
Okay, so I missed that when you initially talked about your scholarship. I made the assumption that it was parents only that were volunteering, but you're telling me that you're getting the kids involved too.
Yeah, they have to work for it. Yep. If you want it bad enough, you will find time in your schedule. You will put your iPod down. You will turn off your gaming system if you want it bad enough. And they do. They really do. When push comes to shove, these kids are amazing, and that's how I know that the kids that I have they're here because they want to be here. So
I love this idea for a whole variety of reasons. First of all, I'm kind of with you of the mind that it's just the right thing to do. Like, why wouldn't you if it doesn't actually hurt you? You're going to be in the studio anyway for that hour. It's not private lessons, it's group lessons, right? And so you're going to be there anyway. What's the pain in bringing in one more kid if they're willing to, donate their time?
I have parents that volunteer. I mean, we have parents that do cleaning things. I have a mom that comes in and cleans our front windows and our mirrors once a week. I have somebody that comes in and sterilizes the mats for us. I have somebody that comes in and sorts our inventory. I have someone come in and do just the floors for it. I mean, there's so many odd jobs that you can find. And littles are not opposed to, they can do things too. Give them a small little dust rag, they can do things. They can run my music for the toddler class. They know how to push play. So, I mean, there is something that I can find value in to trade off my time. I don't have all the time in the world, but I have enough to give. So you have to, they give, I give.
So I don't even know. And for listeners who know me, for people who know me, it's very rare that I don't know what to say, or even more specifically, what to ask. But I'm finding myself at a literal kind of loss for words because this is just so foreign to me. You're bending my brain in a way that it's like I've talked to hundreds of studio owners over the last couple of years, and this is the first time I'm hearing anything quite like this. Now, that said, if you're a listener, then you may recall an interview that we did with Jenny Duro, and she's out of Brighton, Michigan, and she's built kind of a leadership academy. Now, we didn't cover it in detail on the podcast, but hers is, it's a structured thing. It's very rigid. Yours feels, and that's not bad, but yours feels very relational and very like, hey, you come in, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to work with you, and we're going to find out something that works for you. You're just bending my brain. It kind of hurts. I'm not even going to lie. So
my day job, I work in a mental facility, a mental health and wellness facility. And I heard a statistic that the teenagers today we're at an astounding rate of them reporting that they feel lonely.
Right.
Like, it's not necessarily like I have no friends, I'm being bullied. I mean, there's all of that still exists. But the fact that kids are reporting to their therapists and their counselors that they just flat feel lonely, that hurts my heart, because there should be someplace, somewhere that any kid ever, or adult, I mean, our program is for any adult, like I will help anybody. So, I mean, that they should be able to come and not feel lonely, not feel, or even if you can't come every week, then we figure out what's best for you. But that just really kind of like stuck with me. And I was like, there cannot ever be a time that we turn anyone away, because we don't know why they're walking in our door. Maybe this is a release for them, or an outlet, or, maybe they don't fit in anywhere else. And, so we can't say no. I can't. It's not an option. You're not helping my ability to figure out what to say here.
I have read that. I have read that too. That same statistic. And as a dad, I have three little ones at home. My oldest is 7. She's in dance classes, and I've seen that. I've seen the the statistics about loneliness, about the coming depression, about the anxiety. I mean, there's something. It blew my mind the first time I read it, in that it's the average 8th grader today has as much anxiety, like reports as much anxiety as a full-grown adult from the 1950s.
Absolutely. I believe it.
That's
I
huge.
see it radiating from them sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've heard that, and with my own kids, as they're getting older, I'm interacting with more and more of their friends, and I'm seeing, man, like they're having a tough time, whether it's they just don't know how to be physically in spaces with other kids because their lives are, hidden behind screens.
Yep. Digital dependency is awful. Yeah.
So this really is, and everybody says this. Everybody's like, dance is the vehicle. Dance is just the vehicle that we use to create healthy, responsible grown-ups, right? Or like, children that grow into grown-ups. And you're really doing it. Like it sounds like that is core to.
No, there is a lot of work behind it. I mean, we have to monitor things, and I can't have every kid that comes in that can't pay for things. Like they may not be able to advocate enough to do 5 classes and be on competition team, but there is a place for them. And between our sponsorship program and what they need typically is always covered. And I think a lot of it is just do the right thing, like that field of, like, build it, they will come, like, do the right thing, make the right decisions, and do it for the right reasons.
All right. So I want to ask, so your studio, how long have you been in business?
I rebranded it and opened my own studio.
Right. That's what I meant, because we know you kind of inherited grandma's legacy.
I opened that part in 2004.
So you've been doing this in your own right, under your own banner for almost 20 years now.
I've made a lot of adjustments, and I tried having a couple other locations, and I went and taught under a couple other studios for a while, and I thought that's just not what I want to do. And when we closed the other locations, we put all of our focus into one. For the time being, the area that we're in is very, it's a country town, and and when I did that, it was probably the best decision I've ever made. And you put all your focus into what you have in front of you, and it will blossom, and before you know it, you have an abundance of lots of great things, actually. And even in the middle of a pandemic, we probably had our best year that I've ever had, in the worst situation possible.
Well, I absolutely love that. Congratulations, because that's something to, frankly, celebrate. And we all need a little bit of good news in what has been a very unfun. Can you believe it's almost been 2 years?
I know. And the first couple months when we did have to start going into Zoom, and of course I panicked just like everybody else did, and I wondered how are we going to keep everybody engaged, and how, but we work together. We pooled our resources, and I think people got a taste of what it would be like if they didn't have our brick and mortar building. If we didn't have this, if we couldn't go there, if we couldn't be together, then this is what it's going to be like, and we don't want that. So I think, I don't know, our community is just, we've just set that expectation of this is what we do, and this is how we do it. So it's either for you or not for you. But I mean, obviously it works really well for us. So
I am absolutely just amazed at what you're doing. I think it's very, very cool. If folks wanted, because I imagine that our listeners are going to hear this and say, I have questions. There's a lot
behind the scenes work that goes into it. I don't want you to just be like, oh my God, I'm just going to get free lessons for everyone. That's not how it works. That's not how, there is a lot of like little things that we've established, and I have somebody that monitors a lot of things, but it really does work. You have to put the work into it, but if you want to and you want to be able to be there for people, it will work.
Well, and we started by saying, look, that's why I asked the question, like, how long have you? I'll be honest. Is this a social experiment that's going to fail because you're only, 18 months into it,
Oh, no.
or, and it's not. And like the fact that you've been flying your own flag and really building your own, taking grandma's legacy and using that as a springboard to launch where you are now. Clearly it is working. So if folks have questions, first of all, are you part of our Facebook group?
I am, I believe.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So if you have questions for Nikki, you can come and find her in the Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group, definitely go to that. And I think at the time of this recording, it is called Sales and Marketing Advice for Dance Studio Owners. That may be changing, so kind of we'll let you know in the podcast if it does. But you can reach out to Nikki there. And Nikki, where else can folks, if they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I have to know more, how can they get in touch and find out more about what you're doing at Dance Expressions?
So our email is expressionsdancestudio.14@gmail.com. I have my email on me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, definitely feel free to reach out if there is anything. And I've tried a lot of things that don't work too. So, I mean, something's not jiving right. You're like, I just need somebody to brainstorm, that's, sometimes two minds looking at things objectively, it won't take time at all to figure it out. So yeah, anytime.
I absolutely love that. And I want to say thank you again for being here with me today on the show. You're just like I said at the beginning, you're just a delight. You're a ball of energy. And I really appreciate you just being willing to show up and share authentically and real with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Dance Business Daily. This was hopefully as amazing for you as it was for me. Again, I have talked to hundreds of studio owners. I've never heard anything quite like this, and I'm really pleased to have a kind of a practical takeaway. And Nikki, I have a feeling we're going to be bringing you back or getting you involved in some of the Ask Me Anything workshops that we create for our dance studio owners, because I think you have a lot to say and share, and you bring a really unique perspective. So you will likely be hearing more from Nikki, but if you want to hear more from other studio owners that we're talking to studio owners all across the world, from Australia to the UK to the US. Everybody brings their own flavor, best practices, actionable insights. Subscribe wherever it is you get your iTunes or your podcast. That's what it's called. And or follow us on YouTube at the Dance Business Daily. So that's it. Subscribe. We'll chat soon and have a great one.